So the Boom MP recently made my honorable mentions list when it comes to the best rackets for winning matches in 2024, and I wanted to expand on what I think is the hidden genius behind the Boom MP, which seemingly nobody cares about except for me. And I totally get why people don't care about the Boom MP. It's too light, it's sold in a special girls Cocoa Golf colorway, which I personally actually really like. And worst of all, it's a launchy power frame designed for 3.5 noobs, and obviously we're all 5.0s on the TennCom channel. But I seriously think that the Boom MP might actually be the hidden gem of Head's entire lineup. Featuring a very low balance point for such a light frame at 31.5 centimeters and a shockingly low twist weight, the Boom MP offers surprisingly unique and maneuverable specs in a segment that's honestly dominated by stability-oriented clunkers. Usually, these power frames don't offer a ton of room for customization. They feel sluggish because of their balance points, and their twist weights are pretty unwieldy, but the Boom MP is just begging to be roided up.
Not a lot of people realize the mental toll it takes running a tennis YouTube racket review channel. Negotiating with sponsors, dealing with manufacturers can be stressful, but worst of all is dealing with the talent. Some days, I just feel like giving up.
Sippy cup!
Slow down, slow down.
Don't tell me what to do! More!
Managing these different types of relationships while trying to keep production on track, it can really stress me out.
More padding. Gentle.
Sorry.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough.
Thankfully, I've been able to overcome a lot of these mental health challenges, even when they seem to be popping up daily.
I just feel like it doesn't make sense for Auxetic to be dating. I mean, like, it doesn't really add to the story or anything. And, I mean, considering how bad you're at tennis, I don't know.
Sometimes I can really feel stuck between a rock and a hard place. But at the end of the day, it's all worth it because I know I have the admiration and respect of two of the most talented YouTube actors in the tennis space. When I found out about BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Being able to connect easily with a licensed therapist who's trained to offer unbiased and helpful advice has been a huge difference maker for me. And they don't just help people in my situation. No matter what you're going through, BetterHelp can make the difference between struggling and thriving. If you click the link in our bio and answer a few simple questions, BetterHelp can connect you with a trained therapist in your area of struggle in as quick as 48 hours.
Since trying therapy, Simon has really gone back to being himself. He still misses his forehand like 70% of the time, but now he does it with a smile on his face and a twinkle of hope in his eyes. To give BetterHelp a try today, check out the link in the description, betterhelp.com/TennCom, and choose TennCom when you sign up to get 10% off your first month of therapy. So I've added a significant amount of weight to this Boom MP to bring it up to a spec I like. I started off by adding weight at 12 o'clock until I hit 330 swing weight, but lately, since I've been absolutely grooved with my Pure Aero Rafa at 338, I went a bit further up to 334 on this boom. For me, this ended up being about 6 grams in the tip. Then I chucked on the VT Advantech leather grip, which is my favorite leather grip, and added 5 grams of weight at the 7-inch mark, which is at the top of the handle here, bringing the static weight up to 349 strong, including dampener and overgrip. Now, my favorite thing about this setup with the Boom MP is it retains a very low balance point at 31.7 centimeters. It's actually kind of hard to explain the benefits of that lower balance point. You'll get a lot of people who just say it's more maneuverable. You'll get people who say it helps them get the tip around. And while I think those points are both true to a certain extent, the lower balance point is actually a spec that transforms this Boom MP from a launchy, overpowered tweener frame into something I'd almost call like a player's scalpel. So the genius of the low balance point really has to do with optimizing MGRI and recoil weight, at least I think. Throw my boom specs into the calculator and you get a recoil weight of 170 and an MGRI of 20.8. I know from years of testing rackets that those specs are basically perfect for my tennis. I brought rackets up seemingly easier to use specs before with lower static weights. For example, it's possible to maintain that 170 recoil weight and a 334 swing weight, but get those specs at a lower static weight, which you think would be easier to use, something like 340 grams, 32 centimeter balance, and 334 swing weight. But I've actually found those setups to feel pretty clunky and imprecise. They feel clubby and more unwieldy despite having that lower static weight. And from my experience messing around with like a million rackets over the last 5 years, I really think it boils down to MGRI. Read anything about MGRI on the internet and you'll typically find people saying high MGRIs swing faster than low MGRIs. Federer is a classic example of a high MGRI player who kind of like pushes his handle through the stroke, whereas Rafa is a low MGRI player who kind of pulls his handle through the swing. And I've always honestly struggled with both of these ideas. To me, high MGRI frames, rackets with MGRI values closer to 21, feel like they help you find that forehand contact point out in front. So that must mean that your racket is coming through the air so much faster and meeting that ball nice and early, right? Well, not exactly. To me, it feels like suddenly you have all this extra time to make contact with the ball. So imagine yourself for a second hitting a forehand. I'm sure you've done it before. If you catch the ball late, like back here, it means you made contact with the ball too early in your swing before you've really had time to open up that hitting zone. On the other hand, if you catch the ball early, you made contact too late in your swing after it's cleared the hitting zone and kind of closing over. So wouldn't it be nice if you could lengthen your hitting zone? No more late balls, no more early balls? Well, that's exactly what MGRI does. It doesn't necessarily lengthen the space you have to make contact, it lengthens the time you have to make contact. It feels like you swing at the ball and suddenly you have all this time through the hitting zone to find the right contact point, which leads to an immense sense of precision, especially on attacking shots. And this sense of precision is more than just being able to place that ball on a dime in the court. It's more about striking the ball in the right place on the string bed. So this improved targeting is exactly what fixes the launchiness with the Boom MP. Now that we have all this precision through our swing, we can make sure that we're hitting the ball on the sweet spot. This is another thing that I love about the Boom MP. The sweet spot is in the upper third of the string bed, which is exactly where I personally make contact. And I think that's really the source of the launchiness criticism with this frame.
Neither of these two rackets are really any good. String bed is so open, spray the ball, very launchy, but I do find the Boom to be noticeably worse.
Players who hit the ball in the center of the string bed are kind of screwed. You're just gonna get horrifically inconsistent responses. If you make contact kind of below the center line here, the string bed is very dense, there's barely any power. But make contact above the center line, the string bed opens up. You can see these shoulders are pulled open too, so there's like a lot of hitting zone up here. The higher contact point is the contact point you're supposed to find with these booms. That's the whole point of the teardrop shape. And that's where the high MGRI really comes in. With all this control over your contact point from that high MGRI, you can make sure you find that upper sweet spot more often, accessing more reliable power without having to swing out of your boots to find court penetration. And there's one more thing about MGRI. To me, it usually results in a much flatter ball flight. The higher 334 swing weight that we've got this thing up to makes sure you get really strong depth control, and that 20.8 MGRI makes it so easy to just flatten out attacking shots for safe targeting. Thankfully, you don't have to overspin this boom to find control, making it swing and feel more like a modern player's frame rather than a 100 square inch tweener racket. So classic players frames like the Prestige MPs or the 6195s of old, they forced attacking players to hit the center of the string bed out of sheer necessity. If you didn't hit it here, you were hitting the frame basically. And that was part of the two things that made these rackets great for playing attacking tennis. First, the smaller head sizes made the rackets feel fast and headlight, even when they were paired with higher swing weights and pretty big static weights. You had this lovely combination of stability in the head and speed through the air. And second, these smaller head sizes made the rackets feel way more precise. You could really feel where you made contact with the ball on the string bed, which leads to an immense sensation of ball control at the cost of forgiveness. And the modified Boom MP actually shares a lot of these qualities. The low twist weight and balance point give this thing a sense of speed through the air that you just don't see with most 100s and even many 98s. It's up there with rackets like the Extreme Tour, now called the Pro, and even the EZO 98. Definitely surpassing the Aero 98 when it comes to maneuverability, and even my beloved Slinko Whiteout. If you treat this temperamental string bed more like a small head size, things really start to make sense with the Boom MP. You have access to power in the sweet spot that far exceeds any player's frame. The open pattern, especially towards the tip, encourages really natural spin production through the stroke, bringing that ball down into the court, meaning that most of the control is going to come from you, the player. And that's the whole point of a decent player's stick. The racket stands aside and lets the player shine. Pick smart shots and you will be rewarded. But like any player's stick, great footwork and timing is really required to get the most out of the Boom MP. You have to find your contact point in the upper third, but if you get things right, you'll be crushing balls. Obviously, there's one more thing that great players' rackets like these have, and that's feel. So sadly, it's 2024, and this is an Auxetic racket, so the feel isn't that good, but that's just the state of the market right now. Like any stiffer Auxetic frame, the feel is nicely crisp, something you don't see as much these days, as artificially low RAs and dampening techs are supposedly saving our elbows. It's got that Auxetic great pumping feel. It's like kind of when you hit the strings, it's firm with just enough give for a decent ball pocketing effect. And the whole thing does feel a bit artificial, but the flex is relatively uniform and the response is still responsive and communicative. It's like mediocre electric steering, I guess. Like, it tells you what's going on, but you can't help but feel it's overboosted. Thankfully, the hoop flex is very consistent and uniform. It tells you what's going on where you hit the ball on the string bed, and that's good enough for pretty much every single shot. I think the feel is pretty good for a 100, but across the board, it's not great. I think it's more connected than like an Aero 98 or a V-Core 100. It feels more natural than a shift or a clash, but it does feel less good than like a Slinko Blackout or the new Pure Strikes. When it comes to string setups, I actually didn't find this racket to be overly string sensitive. I do personally prefer stiffer, crisper polys for this type of frame. This is Orange Toro Toro right now. I think it's out on a limited release, and it does feel a bit mushy for me, but I think if you like a plusher, more muted feel, then you would really like this string. 20% off code in the description. I preferred, personally, True Pro Duraflex. I thought it played really great, nice responsive, great control, but it didn't last super long because it's a bit of an older tech string, so you don't get as much snapback and string movement as the string starts to age. The notching's pretty rough. Link's Tour plays really well, and so does True Pro's newest string, Pure Rush. I got much better durability out of that than I did with Duraflex, and that Pure Rush review is coming soon to the channel. A really enjoyable test for me, so stay tuned for that. Now, my final thoughts. The Boom MP is probably my favorite head racket right now. It's satisfying my personal goals in the search for more power without sacrificing tip awareness or control. I think it's the perfect choice for someone who's looking for like a faster swinging Aero 98 or a crisper feeling V-Core. I love the flexibility when it comes to this customization, and I'm gonna say that I think customization is really gonna be necessary for most players who wanna pick this frame up. And I just really hope that head stops with this Auxetic crap soon. I guess we still have to wait till 2025 when the gravities get updated. But yeah, I'm really over it. Thanks so much for watching. If this video was helpful and you'd like to purchase any of the products mentioned in the video, we've got affiliate links in the description to the VT Advantech leather grip, True Pro, and Toroline strings, as well as these booms at Tennis Warehouse Europe, and Tennis Only Australia. Thanks so much for watching.
I really